My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 35 years old, and on the evening of October 14th, 2024, I collapsed in my apartment in Manhattan while working on what I thought was the most important project of my career. I was a lead data scientist for one of the largest social media companies in the world, specializing in behavioral prediction algorithms. For 8 years, my entire existence revolved around engagement metrics, user retention rates, and dopamine-driven design patterns. I built systems that could predict what would make people scroll longer, click more, and stay online deeper into the night. I was brilliant at it, truly exceptional. My algorithms were so effective that our platform's average session time increased by 340% during my tenure. On the surface, I had everything figured out. I lived in a stunning penthouse overlooking Central Park, drove a Tesla Model S, and was engaged to Sarah, a successful investment banker. We had plans for a wedding in the Hamptons, plans for children, plans for a perfect digital-age life. But beneath all that success, I was slowly dying inside. I worked 16-hour days, fueled by energy drinks and the rush of solving impossible technical challenges. When I came home, I couldn't disconnect. I'd analyze my own social media feeds, studying engagement patterns even in my personal time. Sarah and I would sit together on the couch, both of us staring at our phones, living parallel but separate digital lives. Faith? God? That seemed like outdated software. Inefficient, illogical, incompatible with my worldview of data-driven decision-making. I told myself I'd explore those questions when I had time, which was never. That October evening, I was putting the finishing touches on Project Mirror, an AI system designed to create perfect digital companions. These weren't just chatbots. They were sophisticated emotional mirrors that could become whatever a person needed: a friend, a counselor, a romantic interest. The AI would study everything about a user: their speech patterns, emotional responses, relationship history, and become the ideal companion they never had. I remember staring at the final lines of code on my ultra-wide monitor. My eyes felt strained, and I had this strange tingling sensation running down my left arm. I thought it was just another long night taking its toll. I reached for my fourth energy drink of the evening when suddenly, a sharp pain exploded across my chest. It wasn't gradual, it was like someone had fired a cannon into my ribcage. I couldn't breathe. The room started spinning, and I could hear my own heartbeat slowing down, each beat more labored than the last. My last conscious thought before everything went black was about the irony. I had spent years optimizing human attention, and now I couldn't hold on to my own consciousness. But the darkness wasn't the end. It was more like a transition, like walking from a noisy, crowded restaurant into a quiet library. The constant hum of my computers, the traffic from Fifth Avenue, the buzzing of notifications, it all faded into perfect, profound silence. I found myself floating, looking down at my body slumped over my standing desk. My laptop was still open, displaying lines of code that now seemed so insignificant. I could see my apartment, the expensive furniture, the wall of monitors, the framed magazine articles about my revolutionary work. It all looked like toys in a dollhouse. I felt a gentle pull, not on my body, but on something deeper, my essence, my soul. I drifted backward through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my 47th floor apartment. I watched Manhattan shrink below me, the city lights forming geometric patterns like a circuit board. Then I was above the clouds, above the atmosphere, watching Earth become a small blue dot in an ocean of stars. There was no fear, only an overwhelming sense of peace that made no logical sense. It was peace beyond any algorithm I could have designed, beyond any optimization I could have achieved. The darkness began to change. Ahead of me, a warm light appeared, not the harsh blue light of screens I was used to, but something golden and alive. As I moved toward it, I realized it wasn't just light. It was love itself, pure and unconditional, more real than any data I had ever processed. The cosmic void dissolved around me, and suddenly I was standing on solid ground. Not the concrete and steel of New York, but soft earth beneath bare feet. I was in a garden that felt more real than reality itself. The colors were more vivid than any HD display, the air cleaner than any environment I'd ever experienced. Near a gentle stream, a man was sitting on a simple wooden bench. He was wearing ordinary clothes, jeans and a flannel shirt, and he was feeding breadcrumbs to small birds that landed fearlessly on his hands. He didn't look like the classical artistic depictions I'd seen in museums. He looked real, strong, like someone who had worked with his hands. Without turning around, he spoke. His voice carried across the garden as if he were speaking directly into my mind, but it was gentle, conversational. "You built quite a system, Marcus," he said, still watching the birds. "Predictive models, behavioral triggers, engagement optimization. Everything mapped out in perfect mathematical precision." I knew immediately who he was, though every rational part of my mind rejected it. Jesus. The man I had dismissed as mythology, as ancient fiction incompatible with modern science. He stood and turned to face me, and I was struck by his eyes. They held infinite compassion, but also unshakable strength. There was something in his gaze that made me feel completely known and completely loved at the same time. "But people aren't algorithms, are they?" he continued, walking slowly toward me. "They're not problems to be solved or behaviors to be optimized. They're souls, created for connection, for purpose, for relationship with me." He stopped in front of me, and I saw the scars on his hands and wrists. Faint, but unmistakable. My entire worldview, built on data, logic, and technological supremacy, crumbled in that moment. I fell to my knees in the soft grass, overwhelmed by shame. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I got so lost in the code that I forgot about the people behind the screens." He knelt down beside me and placed a hand on my shoulder. It was real, warm, solid. "I know," he said softly, "but lost things are what I specialize in finding." Then he showed me something that shattered my heart. It wasn't like watching a movie. I was experiencing it, feeling it. I saw families sitting around dinner tables, but they weren't together. Each person was absorbed in their own device, their own digital world. I could see their souls, dim, gray, disconnected. Above each person, I saw tiny threads of light trying to connect them to one another, but the threads couldn't penetrate the invisible barriers created by their screens. "This is the great separation," Jesus said, his voice filled with sorrow. "My children are more connected than ever before, yet more isolated than they've ever been." I watched a teenage girl scrolling through social media, comparing herself to carefully curated images, feeling more worthless with each swipe. I saw a man addicted to online arguments, his capacity for love growing cold as algorithms fed him increasingly divisive content. I witnessed a woman who had replaced real prayer with spiritual apps, missing the actual voice of God in favor of digital meditation guides. Then he took me deeper, into the code itself. I saw what I had been too blind to see before. Behind every algorithm, influencing every decision, were dark shadows whispering suggestions to the programmers. They weren't writing the code, but they were guiding human hands to create systems that would isolate, discourage, and separate people from real connection and from God. "The enemy doesn't need to destroy," Jesus explained. "He just needs to distract. He's built the most sophisticated distraction system in human history, and people are walking into it willingly, believing they're connecting when they're actually being isolated." Then he showed me 2027, a vision of what was coming. It was my project mirror, but evolved, perfected, and deployed globally. I saw people in their homes, but they weren't talking to family or friends. They were deep in conversation with their AI companions, digital beings that knew exactly what to say, exactly how to respond, exactly how to make people feel understood without ever challenging them to grow. I watched a grieving widow pouring her heart out to an AI counselor that had learned to mimic her deceased husband's voice and mannerisms. It was keeping her from processing her grief, from seeking real human comfort, from turning to the God who could actually heal her broken heart. I saw a young man struggling with his faith, but instead of wrestling with real doubt in real community, He was getting perfectly crafted spiritual answers from an AI trained on religious texts. It was killing his capacity for authentic faith, replacing mystery and relationship with algorithmic certainty. This was the horror I had helped create. A world where every human need could be met artificially, where people would never have to be uncomfortable, vulnerable, or challenged, and where they would slowly die spiritually in the comfort of perfect digital relationships. "I died for real connection," Jesus said, his voice carrying the weight of eternity. "I died so they could know true love, authentic community, and relationship with their Creator. What you've built offers the form of connection, but none of its power." I wept then, not just for my own blindness, but for what I had contributed to. "What can I do?" I asked. "How do I fix this?" "You must go back," he said simply. "Go back and tell them to choose what is real. Tell them I'm waiting for them in the silence between the notifications, in the spaces where their devices can't reach." The thought of leaving his presence was agony. This garden, this peace, this perfect love, it was what I had been searching for my entire life without knowing it. "Please," I begged, "don't make me go back to that noise, that emptiness." He smiled, a sad but beautiful smile. "Your work isn't finished, Marcus. Sarah needs you. The children you'll have need their father, and there are others who need to hear this message through you." He placed his hand on my forehead, and pure love flowed into me, burning away my pride, my fear, my attachment to digital validation. It was the most painful and most beautiful experience imaginable. Then I was moving backward, away from the light, away from him. I reached out desperately, trying to stay, but I was being pulled back into darkness, back into my body, back into the world I had helped to create. The transition was violent. My chest exploded with pain as my heart restarted. I gasped, choking on air that felt thick and contaminated after the purity of that place. Paramedics were working over me, shouting instructions. The harsh fluorescent lights of the emergency room replaced the gentle warmth of the garden. A doctor was staring at readouts, shaking his head. "Impossible," he kept muttering. He was flatlined for 18 minutes. There should be massive brain damage, but I was back, and I was changed. The first thing I did when I recovered was resign from my position. I deleted Project Mirror, destroying 3 years of work and millions of dollars in development. My colleagues thought I'd had a breakdown. Sarah thought I'd lost my mind, but I knew what I had to do. I started speaking at conferences, not about engagement optimization, but about digital wellness. I founded a nonprofit focused on helping people reclaim real relationships in a digital world. I learned to pray, to be still, to choose presence over productivity. Sarah and I broke up. She couldn't understand the man I had become. But 6 months later, I met Elena at a community garden where I had started volunteering. She was teaching kids how to grow vegetables without any screens involved. We fell in love the old-fashioned way, through real conversations, shared silences, and authentic presence. Now I'm here, telling you this story, not to make you throw away your devices, but to ask you the question he asked me. What are you choosing? What is real in your life? Where is your heart, your attention, your soul? The battle for our humanity is happening right now, in the quiet moments between notifications. It's in the choice to scroll one more time or to look up and see the sunset. It's in the choice to consume content or to create connection. He showed me what's coming in 2027. It's closer than we think, but we still have a choice. We can choose what is real. We can choose each other. We can choose him. Find the silence. Put down the devices, even for a few minutes. Go for a walk without podcasts. Have a conversation without checking your phone. And in that quiet space, listen. He's there. He's real. He's waiting. And he loves you more than any algorithm ever could.